What's up guys, Cloudie here checking in from the America server, and today we are gonna have a look at Trial of the Sky Stage 10. As you might know that this was the first trial I did and that I did a video of, which was back then with my Crow and Panzeron duo, and then we took a long detour to like Trial of Earth and then Trial of Flow, but finally I'm free of Flow and returning to Trial of Sky, and this time we're gonna do it with Talisha. Now before we get to it, a bit of a forward, this is not a budget team. My Talisha is fairly well invested, not maxed but not too far from it either, and my supports are reasonably invested too. So sorry, this is not a budget team. I don't really think you can do it with a budget one anyway, but yeah, to do this you will need some level of investment, but Talisha makes it really easy. So let's just have a look at what exactly the boss can do and how we can deal with him. So I have the son Musama, who is a golem type and deals physical damage, which means that your best friends in this battle will be physical block, physical toughness, physical defense with some HP, and also as all trials he has very high accuracy, so dodge stats don't really help you with staying alive. Now Musama comes with 4 of his friends that are called Relics of the Skies. These are like totems placed around him, forming a healing field sort of thing, which means that at stage 6 and above he will heal, and also only melee characters who are inside this field can heal too. The ranged characters who are sitting outside the field will not be able to heal, except for a certain phase of the fight when these totems are deactivated. Now these relics themselves do not take damage for the most part of the battle, and they cannot be debuffed unless you have a perk or like a UT that prevents your debuffs from being dispelled. For instance, Crow's UT4 does this, where his marks cannot be dispelled and they can be stacked up on the totems before the actual nuke phase. Now Musama has a passive which prevents his defense and attack from being reduced, so this means that penetration and ignore defense stats are very helpful. Characters which have ignore defense nukes like Talisha are really powerful here, and it's also worth noting, however, that while Musama himself cannot be defense shredded, the totems, the relics can. And so, for instance, if you are running Pansy and Zephyr is your tank, his S3 will reduce the defense of the totems and allow you to do more damage. Also worth noting that at the beginning of the battle, Musama does not take any damage, but once you go through the first nuke phase, he will start taking damage even in between these nuke phases, so you can continuously DPS him at a somewhat reduced efficiency, but you can still nuke his face, and this will be needed to actually get him down in time. Now what is this nuke phase? It's his next skill, the Icon of the Sun. This has a 30-second cooldown, and basically what happens is that he will start summoning energy or collecting energy above his head, and if you do not kill his totems, then he will just nuke you with this giant ball of energy sand, something that will stun you and dispel you and generally wipe out your ranged team. So what you need to do is that you actually destroy his totems before he finishes the cast. In this case, he will be stunned and he will take increased damage. And also at this point, the relics, the totems will be deactivated, so you can heal your team, which is really helpful because otherwise you would be dying. Now, moving on with his skills, he has a Tempest Sand. This is like a whirlwind type of sandstorm thing that is only activated if you have a melee character. And the thing about this is that it does reflect damage, which is really stupid, I think, in this kind of game, because you cannot stop your characters from attacking. And if you have a ranged DPS, they will just murder themselves with the reflect damage, and you don't really have any way to avoid this. Yeah, if you are in melee range, it will also like stack a defense reduction debuff on you, which you could cleanse. But the point is that essentially no one runs melee characters in this battle. I know some people like Flash have done Sky 8 with their Reina, but it's just not really worth. Most of the time you will just not bring a melee at all to avoid this Tempest Sand from being cast, and you use a ranged tank instead. And this is actually really bad for assassins because, well, almost all of them are melee range and they cannot do their own trial because of this one stupid skill. And this has been like this for a year now, and Vespa hasn't done anything about it, so meh. Now his final skill, Solar Wave, this is like an AoE straight line attack, which deals quite a lot of damage and also reduces your mana by about 2000, so 2 bars. This can do a lot of damage to you, especially because sometimes he will cast it right at the beginning of the battle before you have any attack reduction debuffs on him, which do work. So, and those are also very important for the battle. Reducing his attack will mean that he does less damage to you. But basically, that's the gist of the fight. You will be starting with the totems, then you go to the nuke phase, you kill the totems, and then you start DPSing him. When he stops being neutralized, then he will come back, summon his totems again, which means you cannot heal again. Then he will do his like solar wave, and then he will start some or casting Icon of the Sun once again, which you nuke and so on until he dies, or you do if you mess up, or like you get unlucky because he does a weird thing with his cast. But yeah, basically that's the fight. Now let's see how this actually works with Talisha. So as the battle starts, I immediately switch forms with Talisha for her S3D, and you can see the Solar Wave skill coming off without the special bullet buff or debuff on the boss, which nearly kills most of my team. This gets a bit better when you have the constant special bullet on him, then he will not be taking or doing so much damage. Now we are preparing for the first nuke, which should be coming up in a second. We will be casting Krisha S2, Annette S1 and S2, reset with Oddie, soul weapon with Oddie, while we are nuking with Talisha S1. I have the perk that lets her cast it 3 times in a row, and 2 of these will be ignoring defense, so I'm not relying on Oddie reset to do the damage. It's mostly there for the buff, the 50% buff from his perk. And then the boss is knocked down, we do some damage, we use Talisha S2 to heal back to all this health, because my end just doesn't heal fast enough, so I like to use Talisha S2 there just to give a little bit of extra healing to Oddie so he doesn't die between the nuke phases. My Krisha play isn't the best here. I could use her S2, S1 a bit more for the attack buff, but her S3 is really useful for the healing reduction on the boss, because he really does do a lot of healing. And now we do it again. Talisha S1, debuff with Krisha, debuff with Annette, and then nuking with Talisha, switching over to do her red S1, and then a little bit of healing to top off Oddie. And then we continue nuking the boss with her red S1. You can use Oddie's S3 as a timer to when you need to switch. It perfectly aligns with the nuke from Musama, so when you can see that you have like less than 10 seconds, then you can start preparing with all your buffs and debuffs that you will need to use. So you can see it's like 7 seconds on Oddie's timer, so I'm gonna do one last cast with Talisha and then switch back to her blue form, and then the nuke should be coming up any moment. Now here it is, of course, Talisha S1, Krisha S2, Annette S1 S2, Oddie casting his S3, and then Talisha nukes with her S1 combo, and that's a giant chunk of health that the boss loses there. The totems go down, S1 again, we do her S2 just to top off Oddie, and curiously, Talisha's soul weapon actually does a lot of damage too. You can see it right here, but it can hit for a lot of damage, and you can see that, yeah, we have killed this pretty fast, so I was quite proud of myself. This was like my second or third clear on 10, and it was the second clear on 10 and my third clear with Talisha, so I was quite happy that this worked out the way it did. And then let's just go and check what kind of skills, gears and perks we were using. So here's my Talisha. As said, heavily invested, max unique weapon, unique treasure, just enough crit chance to be kept with an ad buff, and she runs 2 ignore defense lines on technomagic gear, 1 stacking damage line, and 1 attack on kill because I'm an idiot and rerolled the wrong gear. These are her perks. As you can see, I'm using S3 Dark and Tier 5 Dark. If you need the healing reduction on the boss, you can also take Mortal Wound. For me, killing the totems was harder, so I didn't do that. Moving on, we can see my Annette. She's mostly wearing physical defense, physical block, could have a bit more block actually, and has a 5-star crown to buff Well, the important part here is the special bullet and the crit damage buff, but you could technically have Krisha with special bullet or Oddi. Oddi is the main tank, needs around 140, 150k defense. I have the lion statue, so he doesn't need that much defense after all, and I'm using S3 Dark for the buff. And finally we have Krisha. Her perks could be better. She isn't really doing damage. If she was more invested, she could actually be a single target DPS, so I don't really need her S1 Dark there. She's mainly a buffer, debuffer, so her perks aren't that important, and you could be actually using special bullet on her, which might make more sense. So this was the run with Talisha. I hope it was helpful to you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Cloudie out for now. Bye bye.